Our whole justice system, it's built on this one big idea: innocent until proven guilty. But what happens when that system gets it wrong? Today, we're diving into a really critical question. Can something like artificial intelligence actually help fix the human mistakes that lead to wrongful convictions? Let's get into it.
Take a look at this number, 16. Just let that sink in for a second. What on earth could that represent when we're talking about justice?
16 years. That's the average time an innocent person spends locked away before they're finally exonerated. I mean, that is a staggering amount of time. It's basically a life stolen by the very system that's supposed to protect it. This is the human cost we're dealing with, and it's exactly why the stakes are just so incredibly high.
So you gotta ask, how does this even happen? Well, research points to a few major culprits. Mistaken eyewitnesses, they're a factor in a whopping 63% of these cases. Flawed forensic science, that plays a role in over half. And believe it or not, in about a quarter of them, people actually confess to crimes they didn't even commit. So we're not talking about just one single mistake, it's more like a cascade of errors, everything from questionable police work to really deep-seated biases like tunnel vision.
Okay, so that brings us to our first section. We need to really understand these hidden flaws in the system, the very problems that people are hoping new tech can solve.
Now, this idea of technology fixing miscarriages of justice, it's not exactly new. We've actually seen this movie before, with the first huge tech revolution to hit this space.
It really all kicked off back in the 1980s, when lawyers working on cases like Marion Coakley's first realized the incredible power of DNA testing. Wow, it was a total game changer. This thinking led to the founding of the Innocence Project back in '92. And today? Well, DNA evidence is a cornerstone of forensic science. It's this powerful tool that has proven without a doubt that technology can be a massive force for justice.
And that, of course, brings us right up to today and the next potential frontier: artificial intelligence. So the big question is, could AI be the DNA of our century? So when we say AI here, what we're really talking about is machine learning. Instead of programming a computer for every single possibility, these programs learn from data. They build their own mathematical models to figure out patterns and make predictions. You can kind of think of it like a detective who just gets better and better the more cases they study. And you've got two main flavors here. With supervised learning, you basically give the AI a data set where the answers are already marked. It's like giving it a stack of flashcards to study. But with unsupervised learning, you just hand over the data and say, go find something interesting. It's more like giving a detective a big unsorted box of evidence and asking them to find the hidden clues.
So here's the core idea. Can these incredibly powerful tools sift through millions of pages of legal documents, we're talking transcripts, police reports, all of it, and spot these tiny, subtle patterns of bias or systemic error that are just plain invisible to the human eye?
Okay, so that's the theory. But how does it actually hold up in practice? To find out, we're going to look at this fascinating real-world test case from researchers at Sheffield Hallam University.
So, the team took a bunch of criminal lawsuits from Brazil and fed them into their machine learning models. But before they could even start looking for bias in the court's judgments, they slammed right into a massive roadblock, a huge bias in the data itself. An overwhelming 93% of the defendants were male, and things like their social condition were only noted in a tiny fraction of the cases. And this is a really, really big deal. See, if the data you're feeding the AI is already skewed, the AI is going to get really good at understanding the majority group, but it's going to be pretty clueless about the minority. This isn't just some techie glitch. It's a critical flaw that could create an algorithm that just automates and amplifies the inequalities we already have.
All right, so what happened when they actually let the algorithm run? The researchers used a supervised learning model to try and predict the defendant's gender based on all the other case info. This chart here, it's called a confusion matrix, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a scorecard for the AI comparing its predictions to what actually happened.
And the results? Well, they were revealing. The AI correctly predicted a defendant was male 168 times. It was fantastic at spotting the majority, but how many times did it correctly predict a defendant was female, the minority class? Get ready for this. 1. Just one time. It pretty much completely failed to identify the minority because it just didn't have enough data to learn from.
And this right here is the absolute key takeaway from the whole experiment. The AI didn't fail because the code was bad. It failed because the historical data it was trained on was just a reflection of a skewed reality. You know the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
So, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict on using AI in the justice system?
Well, it's clearly a powerful tool, but it is absolutely not a magic bullet.
But even with all these challenges, experts believe the potential is still enormous. Researcher Rafał Wielki thinks this technology could become a crucial tool for minimizing the very errors that put innocent people in prison to begin with.
But, and it's a big but, getting there is not going to be easy. We're talking huge practical hurdles, like how do you digitize mountains of old paper files or get countless different IT systems to talk to each other? And then you've got the huge ethical questions. How do we make sure these algorithms are transparent? And maybe most important of all, how do we make sure a human is always in charge of the final call?
So where does all this leave us? Maybe we've been asking the wrong question the whole time. What if AI's true purpose isn't to replace the judge and jury? What if it's meant to become the most powerful investigative assistant the world has ever known? A partner that can surface facts we missed and point out our own biases, helping us make the system just a little more just for everyone.